Welcome to the deep dive. You send us the stuff you're curious about, articles, research, and, well, we dig through it all.
Yeah, we try to pull out the most interesting, important bits for you.
Think of it as your shortcut to getting seriously well-informed and hopefully, having a bit of fun, too.
Exactly. We're tackling the info overload, basically, connecting the dots so you get the bigger picture.
And today, thanks to a listener suggestion, we are plunging into a really unique dinosaur. Buitreraptor. We've got scientific papers, news articles, quite a bit to go through.
Right. Our mission really is to figure out what makes Buitreraptor so significant. Why is it such a captivating find?
We'll look at its weird features, its place in the dinosaur family tree.
And what it tells us about how flight might have evolved, that whole long, twisty story.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, the discovery. Our sources say Buitreraptor popped up in 2004, Patagonia, Argentina.
Yeah, and the Candeleros Formation, that puts it in the early late Cretaceous, so roughly 98, maybe 97 million years ago.
And that time frame, that's important, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because South America back then, it was basically an island continent, like Australia today.
Ah, okay. And isolation, that often leads to some pretty weird evolution, right?
Definitely. You get unique developments you just don't see elsewhere.
The fossil site name is pretty cool, too. La Buitrera, the vulture roost.
It is evocative, yeah. But here's the thing, you'd expect loads of dinosaur bones, but they're actually quite rare there.
Really? That seems odd, especially when, Giganotosaurus was found practically next door, one of the biggest predators ever.
It just shows how unpredictable fossil hunting can be. You can have these completely different finds so close together.
So who actually found Buitreraptor?
That was Sebastian Apostagia and Peter Makovicky, a really, really significant find. Added a whole new piece to the puzzle.
And the name Buitreraptor La Buitrera Caesar or vulture-raider, a direct nod to the site.
Exactly. And the species name, Gonzalezorum, that honors the Gonzalez brothers, Fabian and Jorge.
Oh, for their work excavating and prepping the fossils.
Yeah, which is incredibly painstaking work, especially with delicate fossils. It's great they got that recognition.
That is cool. So the main specimen, the holotype, that's MPCA 245.
Correct. A partial skeleton, crucially including the skull from an adult. That's the reference
Yeah,
specimen.
there's a paratype too.
MPCA 238, parts of the hips, a hind limb. And since then, yeah, there's been more research, descriptions of new bits, the tail, building a more complete picture.
Okay, so this vulture-raider, what did it actually look like? Because when I hear raptor, I think big.
Well, forget the movie monsters for a second. Buitreraptor was, well, about the size of a rooster.
Not a rooster, seriously.
Seriously. Gregory S. Paul estimated it back in 2010, maybe 1.5 meters long, weighing only about 3 kilograms.
Wow, rooster size. That's tiny compared to Velociraptor.
It's a huge contrast, isn't it? Especially with those northern dromaeosaurs we usually picture. Buitreraptor was much more slender, more elongated.
And the snout, I read that was really distinctive.
Oh, yeah. Incredibly long, flat, slender snout. Very different from the short, boxy snouts of, say, Velociraptor.
And the teeth, too. That sounds really key. They weren't steak knives.
Not at all. It had lots of small teeth, but they didn't have those serrations, those meat-cutting edges.
So what were they like then?
They were grooved, curved strongly backwards, and kind of flattened.
Okay, so the fact they lacked those sharp edges tells us a lot about its diet, right?
Absolutely. It strongly suggests it wasn't tackling big prey like its northern cousins might have.
More like small stuff.
Uh,
Lizards, maybe mammals.
That's the thinking, yeah. The teeth seem much better suited for just grasping and holding on to smaller, probably wriggly animals, not for tearing flesh.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The arms, the forelimbs and hands.
Right. Our sources really emphasize how long they were.
Ending in these super long, thin, three-fingered hands.
Proportionally, yeah. Even longer than in big names like Deinonychus or Velociraptor.
Though the actual claw bones were smaller.
Correct. The ungulls, the bones forming the claws, were proportionally smaller. But the overall arm and hand structure was very elongated, hints at a different use, perhaps.
And it still had the sickle claw on the foot, that classic raptor trait.
It did, yeah. An enlarged claw on the second toe, definitely a dromaeosaur feature.
Maybe not as massive as others.
Exactly. It was long, but maybe not quite as robust or recurved as in Velociraptor. The whole body shape was elongated, too. Shallow rib cage suggests a lighter, maybe more agile build overall.
Okay, gotta ask the big question for any dromaeosaur. Feathers. Did it have them?
Well, here's the thing. We don't have direct fossil evidence. No preserved feathers with Buitreraptor itself.
Ah, okay. But
But look at its close relatives, things like Microraptor, Ornithosaurus. We do have beautifully preserved feathers from them.
and they're on the same branch of the family tree, basically.
Exactly. Given how closely related they are, it's extremely likely Buitreraptor was feathered too. It's kind of like, finding an extinct monkey fossil, you'd assume it had fur, because all its close relatives do.
Right, that makes sense. The phylogenetic bracketing argument.
Precisely.
So this rooster-sized, long-snouted, probably feathered critter from South America, where does it fit? How did scientists even figure out its place in the grand scheme?
Well, the initial analyses, cladistics, that's where they compare physical traits to build a family tree, put it firmly in dromaeosaurid.
Okay, so definitely a raptor.
Definitely. Specifically in a subgroup called Unenlagine. But what's really fascinating and what our sources highlight is that Buitreraptor has this mosaic of traits.
A mosaic, meaning features from different groups.
Exactly. It shows characteristics you see in dromaeosaurids, sure, but also things reminiscent of troodontids and even early birds' avulins.
Whoa. So it's not a straightforward picture at all. That must have really shaken things up.
It did, especially regarding the whole flight evolution debate.
Ah, right. The sources mentioned that. Did flight evolve separately in birds and some dromaeosaurs, or did they inherit it, or the potential for it, from a common ancestor that could fly?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? You have relatives like Rahonavis, which might have been capable of flight in the same broad group. That kind of fuels the flying common ancestor idea.
But why the debate then? If a relative could fly.
Well, the problem is most other dromaeosaurs, including Buitreraptor itself, don't show clear flight adaptations. No obvious signs they were flapping around. So that makes the independent evolution idea pretty compelling for many researchers. It's complex.
And where do the latest classifications put Buitreraptor specifically?
A big 2019 study by Hartman and colleagues places it solidly within Unenlagine.
Okay, so still in that group. Who else is in there with it?
Other Southern Hemisphere guys, mostly
Yeah.
Austroraptor, Pyroraptor, Pamparaptor, the aforementioned Roanavis. Also some others like Ornithodesmus, Dakotaraptor, and Unenlagine itself.
Wow, it really sounds like the Southern Hemisphere was doing its own thing with dromaeosaurs. You mentioned Austroraptor, Unenlagine.
And Nukenraptor from South America, Roanavis from Madagascar. Even some unidentified teeth found way over in Australia.
So it completely blows up the idea that dromaeosaurs were just a Northern Hemisphere phenomenon.
Totally. These discoveries massively broadened our understanding. Clearly, they were way more widespread, and the southern ones were evolving in really unique ways, probably due to that long isolation.
Which leads to the question of where they came from in the first place. I saw one idea mentioned origin around 180 million years ago, before Pangaea fully split.
That was an earlier hypothesis, yeah,
Mhm.
based on the idea they needed to be widespread before the continents broke apart.
But newer studies suggest something different.
Right. More recent work, looking at newer fossils and analyses, points towards a slightly later origin, maybe around 160 million years ago. It's always being refined as we find more clues.
And there's that other idea, too, about how the southern ones got so different, not just isolation, but migration.
Yes, the alternative hypothesis. That maybe dromaeosaurs actually originated up north in Laurasia, and then some groups migrated south to Gondwana later during the Cretaceous.
Ah, and then they got isolated and started evolving differently.
Exactly. That could explain why the southern species have such distinct features compared to the northern ones. They arrived, got cut off, and adapted to their new environments. Like, Darwin's finches, but dinosaurs on continents.
Fascinating. And what else was living alongside Buitreraptor in Patagonia back then? What was its neighborhood like?
Oh, Lautrec was surprisingly diverse, despite the rarity of dinosaurs. The sources list, terrestrial crocodile.
Crocs walking around on land.
Yep, pterosaurs, those flying reptiles. Also, get this, the largest known rhynchocephalians. They're relatives of today's tuatara from New Zealand.
Wow. What else?
Limbed snakes, snakes that still had tiny legs, iguanian lizards, turtles, early mammals, even lungfish. It paints a really vivid picture.
It really does. So let's try to put it all together. What was Buitreraptor's life like? It's paleobiology.
Well, the group it belongs to, the Unenlagines, they're generally thought to have been highly cursorial.
Cursorial, meaning built for running.
Exactly. Built for speed. They had this gracile, lightweight build, and their foot bones, the metatarsals, were modified thin, lengthened.
So better runners than the stockier northern raptors.
That's the suggestion. which likely means they were pursuit predators, chasing down fast-moving prey.
So this little rooster-sized guy was probably zipping around hunting quick animals, though we don't know exactly what, right?
The exact prey is still unknown, yeah, but likely small, fast animals.
And those long arms and hands come back in here?
Probably used to grab and restrain that agile prey once they caught up to it.
And the sickle claw?
Yep.
Still useful.
Oh, definitely. Even if it wasn't giant, it was still a sharp, curved claw on that second toe. Probably used to injure the prey, maybe pin it down, deliver this killing blow.
And the feeding, swallowing prey whole because of the teeth.
That seems most likely, yes. Without serrations for tearing flesh, swallowing smaller prey whole makes the most sense. Those teeth were for gripping, not slicing.
Okay, let's wrap this up. Bringing this deep dive home. What are the absolute key things about Buitreraptor that stick with you?
For me, it's that totally unexpected mix of features. It's clearly a dromaeosaur, but it just smashes the velociraptor mold.
Yeah, the slender bill, that super long snout, the weird teeth.
Exactly. It paints a picture of a totally different kind of predator. And finding it, and others like it in the Southern Hemisphere, just completely changed our view of dromaeosaur evolution and where they lived.
And the flight connection is still a big puzzle piece.
Absolutely. Its place in that whole debate about bird origins and potential dromaeosaur flight is still really captivating.
Yeah, the aha for me is seeing how this, relatively small dinosaur from this isolated continent just throws a wrench into our neat little boxes. You think, raptor, you picture one thing.
And Buitreraptor says, nope, think again.
Exactly. It just shows how things like isolation, different environments can drive evolution down these really surprising paths.
It's a fantastic example of that. Evolution isn't a straight line.
So here's something for you, the listener, to chew on. Given Buitreraptor's weird mix, what other totally unexpected evolutionary roads might dinosaurs have taken on other isolated bits of land during the Cretaceous?
Think about islands, other continents. What bizarre adaptations might have popped up that we just haven't found yet? How could those unique pressures have sculpted dinosaurs in ways we can barely imagine?
A really cool thought. Makes you wonder what else is out there waiting to be discovered.
Definitely. It just highlights how much more there is to learn about the incredible and often very surprising history of life on Earth.